Good evening. I will call to order the Finance Committee meeting on March 4th, 2024 at 7 p.m. We have two items on the agenda this evening. One, a proposed ordinance amendment to the City Code, Chapter 125, Personnel. Also, we have a proposed change to the hours of the senior assessors from 35 hours to 40 hours per week. I'm going to go out of a little order than we have on the agenda this evening. I'm going to go to order number 24-100-9097. Communication from the mayor, proposed change to the hours of the senior assessor from 35 hours to 40 hours per week, and a transfer request in the amount of $3,653 from reserve for salaries to senior assessor to cover the salary increase for the remainder of FY 2024. I'll begin by reading the letter submitted by the mayor. Dear Council President Ossing and Councilors, enclosed for your review and approval is a change in the hours for the senior assessor position within the assessing department from 35 hours per week to 40 hours per week. This change is pursuant to the side letter agreement made between Mayor Vigent and the MMEA in August of 2023, and is in the reference to Article 7 and Article 8 of the MMEA Collective Bargaining Agreement. This change was requested on the previous administration with the goal of decreasing the reliance on outside vendors, providing additional department coverage, and providing the senior assessor with more flexibility with scheduling. The senior assessor, along with the principal assessor, do work in the field, which can take significant time out of the day. Unfortunately, no funding source was identified by the prior administration when agreeing to this change, and it was not built in with the existing FY 2024 budget. Therefore, as we are under an obligation to comply with the agreement, I'm requesting a transfer of $3,653 for reverse for salaries to cover the cost increase for the remainder of FY 2024. With the transfer, I've included the letter from the Principal Assessor, John Valade, and the updated salary ordinance for the senior assessor position. Principal Assessor John Valade and I will be at a future meeting to answer any questions you may have. Sincerely, J. Christian Dumas, Mayor. And with that, I'll bring the, good evening, Mr. Mayor. If you want to comment on anything,
Good evening.
Or go right to questions if the Finance Department has any, committee has any questions.
We had to get the funding source, which is why it was not included in the previous packet with the other positions, and so I'm here to answer any of your questions that you have.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to the Finance Committee. I know in the past, I've always been very supportive of changes in ordinances for pay scales, doing training, retaining, good employees for the city, and attracting skilled workers into the team of the city of Marlborough. I do have some reservations on this because I'm a little concerned down the future if this is going to have a lot of impact on other offices wanting to go to 40 hours. With that, also looking at the budget for 2025, and having some other things that might be coming down that may be more targeted to a particular department. So I do have some questions in regards to that, but I will open that to the Finance Committee. Councilor Brown, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In reviewing the mayor's letter and seeing that the agreement happened between the previous mayor in August of 2023, I feel like for the current fiscal year, I would definitely be supportive of approving the funding for the remainder of the fiscal year, and I would just open it to you for whatever questions you have if nobody else has any.
Thank you, Councilor Brown.
Thank you.
Any other Councilor Orm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just curious, the need was explained, but if it wasn't to be approved, where do we go with the assessor's office?
I will refer that to the assessor's office, so if John wants to come up and answer that. I do know that we utilize a lot of outsourcing when it comes to field work, so I would assume that would alleviate that cost, but John can speak more of that.
Hi, John. The question is basically, if it's not approved, where does your department stand, and will you need to source out contractors? Just curious, the need. Now, if you could explain the need
Sure.
to some degree.
Yep. And again, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, good evening,
councilors.
Principal Assessor.
I just want to note, if everyone recalls, last, was it the end of September, beginning of October, when this was originally discussed, and I believe voted on and agreed or voted through at that time. This is mainly to better align the assessing position with other surrounding, mid to larger communities. This level of assessing position at any mid to large, town or city, they're all based pretty much on 40 hours, and their duties are, extensive and in support of the assessing department. But it's mostly to increase the internal data integrity. I brought these for a reason. And also, it just allows us to have better control of our internal information and data. The more you source out to third-party vendors, the more the data gets skewed, or you have less control, basically, of what's going on. So it's just a less reliance on outside vendors, more control internally. It's my personal belief and opinion that most assessing positions should be 40 hours anyway, and it probably should have always been not a 35-hour position, but a 40-hour position. But again, that's just, my opinion. But that's basically it, just to have better control, less reliance on outside vendors. And
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just a comment, I agree with our assessor that, I've seen it before where if you're using a contractor, they're in there for a different reason than if you're using a staff employee. So I would go along with the increase to this position, so you would have my support based on your information you provided. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Council. And I do want to respond to Principal Assessor, because and for the new council members, I was one back there that was supporting the change. And then just going forward with again, budget numbers, this position will now be coming in at about $98,900. And looking at that figure and some other proposed, we still have a director of the DPW, a commissioner of the DPW. We need to look at that and some other. That was my decision, but it is correct for the new councils that are here that I did support this in the past. Thank you. Councilor Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you had brought up the issue of establishing a precedent for all positions at 35 hours, and in our efforts for equity and fairness. If we raise one up to 40, well, we have to raise them all up to 40. That's a concern of mine as well. How many positions do we have right now that are at 35 hours? Any idea?
That I do not.
Or even more importantly, how much of an if we did say,
Yep.
Let's raise them all up to 40, what type of a financial impact that would have on our budget?
I'm thinking
I know
just
the
an average,
dollar
it could be about $7,500 to $12,000 per employee, depending on what their pay scale is. I'm just going to put it out there, probably about $7,500. This one, you're looking at an increase because of the 40 hours, about $12,000 increase for the year. And that is a valid question.
Thank you.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Is this one person's role, or how many people are senior assessors? Just one?
just one.
Okay, and none of these are actually clocked punch time, right? They're basically,
Well, that's correct.
it's an honor system as far as the hours that you work.
That's right. It is a union position.
Right, but there's no clock to punch or anything else?
There
with
is
that?
not, no.
Okay, so it's, it's a pseudo 35 versus a pseudo 40, and I think, the 35 hours basically, if we can save money on the other end by making sure that the people put the extra time in, and we're not doing the contractors and stuff, I think, yeah, there's better data integrity, and we end up spending less money for the contractors, so, and we'll be paying mostly the other benefits anyway. So, but, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Doucette. Mr. President.
I'll yield to Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landers.
Sorry. I think we're going to have to address what Councilor across the way was talking about there, taking a look at the number one person in each department. But I get a question that I feel rather strong about. The office is open, I believe, from 9 to 5. And if my math is correct, that's an 8-hour shift. Is that correct?
It's actually, we're open 8:32 to 5 o'clock, and the new hours for this position would be 8:30 to 5 o'clock with a half-hour lunch as opposed to I don't want to say typical hour lunch, but
I was
presently
surprised it
an
was still
hour.
a union position, but that's all right. I can accept that. But ordinarily, the department head or the head honcho, I think he should basically work the hours that the office is open, because there's always decisions to be made. Now, you have what, 2 assistant assessors?
Just one. There's 2 clerks in the office, myself and the senior assessor position.
Senior assessor, okay. And of course, we've gone the route with the contractors over the years and so forth. I have no problem, in increasing this at this point. I think it would be a good start. But somewhere along the line, we have to make a promise that we will look at what Councilor Vital come up with, that take a look at some of the other so-called department heads. And, maybe we feel that some departments should work a 40-hour week, or the department head should, or maybe 35 is sufficient. All I know is that I would never run a school with the principal working, an hour less a day than the school's open. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Councilor Landers. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll remind the councilors, and especially the new ones, this is a union negotiated item. This isn't something the council's involved with. We're involved with providing the funding for the position, not the negotiations. So to say, is everyone go to 35? Yes, that's a concern, but that's between the mayor and the unions. That is not a council decision. When it comes to funding it, then it becomes a council decision. So my comments on the position, so I'm excited about the words decrease reliance on outside vendors. So to satisfy me, we have $200,000 in the assessor's budget for outside service. What can I anticipate your budget's going to be submitted in fiscal year 25 with this additional services of the senior assessor to reduce our reliance on outside services?
Sure. Well, in the past, especially the past 2 years, the outside vendors that we've needed to utilize were KRT, and at times we still need vision for certain aspects of what we do throughout the year in the assessing department. But any of those outside, my main concern is bringing in the inspection aspect of it. The senior assessor, myself, being out in the field more together and accomplishing more inspections. More so, again, taking that work away from the outside vendors. We can immediately cut that out where we've utilized those, especially those 2 companies in the past, either for building permit inspections or cyclical inspections, or inspections that the state require that every property be viewed or looked at now every 10 years. It used to be 9 years. But I've had several conversations with my senior assessor, and we both conclude or say the same thing, that it just never is the same when you're relying on outside eyes, so to speak, to review, inspect, adjust, whatever it may be, the same way that, myself and the senior assessor would, just for continuity and consistency, because we know the state DOR is all about consistency. They just want to see whatever you're doing with one property, you're carrying that through to all similar or like properties in that class, whether it's office or retail or fast food or residential. So it's primarily to do that. And before I forget, if I could just note, if you don't mind, that I raised that very question as far as the possibility of setting a precedent. And immediately I was told, and I don't know if it was the HR director or auditing, but I've been told that in the past there have already been positions that have union positions that have transitioned from 35 to 40 hours. So they kind of set my mind at ease right away to say that shouldn't be a concern because that's already have happened, in the past. The other thing I just wanted to point out, I did include a little chart, a survey. I don't know if everyone received a copy of that, but it is a breakdown of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nearby communities, illustrating what positions they have, what the hours are for the position, whether or not they were union or non-union. So that may be, helpful as well.
Again,
Mr. President, if I could interject.
I was just going to say, because my question wasn't answered.
It was
Thank
not,
you, Mr.
it was
Mayor.
not. We are
thought it
going through the
was, but-
fiscal year 25 shortly with the numbers, and I'll be looking at that item specifically to make sure that it is decreased. It is noted in my calendar to take a look at that. So you should see a decrease in that line item. So,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, because
You're
again,
welcome.
both your letter and the assessor's letter say there's a decreased reliance, so we would anticipate the $200,000 we're currently seeing, something less than $200,000 should come in before the council for the fiscal year 25 budget.
I also had reservations about this as well, so I understand and I respect your reservations with this. So that's why I wanted to bring it to the council to see what the appetite of the council was. Like I said, I had made a note about that line item, so rest assured that it will be decreased during the fiscal year 25 budget process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that as well, because that was the question we had. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Council Roby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I went back and looked through some information that I had, and in 2023, when we did the budget, we had reduced the professional and technical services line by $50,000, and at that point, we're hiring a senior assessor. So I had asked some questions about why the senior assessor line was as high as it was. I have a chart that is the FY23 salary table that very specifically shows the senior assessor at 7 hours a week. So if in fact the mayor negotiated with the MMEA between that time and the FY24 budget, I'm disappointed that the increase wasn't in the budget when it should have been. And if he did it after the budget was done, then I think he should have still come down with a transfer and let us know that it was increased. I'm not sure why, since in FY23 it was 7 hours. There are many that are 8. There are also many that are only 7 hours a week. So it's interesting that it all happened. I guess I am in agreement with comments that just because it was done doesn't mean it has to be funded. So I guess I would also push for a decrease in outside vendors if we have an increase in the assessor's hours going forward.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Orman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and this has been good transparency amongst us all. I agree that having that full-time 8-hour-a-day position is going to not just help in respect to having our contractors working less and saving money in that $200,000, But also, if you're looking for a senior assessor, and you're looking at someone at 7 hours versus 8, they'll probably go to Westboro or Leominster, all the other towns you noted. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and I've asked HR before, and the mayor remembers too, and we've talked, that this isn't just this position, but I'm glad you brought it to us, and I'm glad it's here because it addresses many needs that may have not have been taken care of with the past administration. And if we want to start attracting employees to the city of Marlborough and not trying, we're always trying to find employees, we need to do this evaluation. HR, I'm glad you brought your position out, but there will be others. And again, yours is a money saver. It will probably, I'm hoping to see that reduction in the $200,000 at budget time, but this is a reduction to contractors to make sure we are attracting suitable employees who will probably go for an 8-hour per day position versus a 7. And we have to get into the times. Marlborough has been known to not pay as well as some of our surrounding communities. So when we talk a certain number like 98,000, that's still probably not as much as you might find somewhere else. And finding employees is getting more and more difficult, especially after COVID. I think it's time we move forward. Council Landers, I agree with you 100%. I worked in a department where the manager was less hours than the staff. So when that person left, you didn't have the staff that you really needed. So I support this, and I will support it. I don't know how many of us will support it, but budget time, we'll all be looking at your budget to see the line item as it relates to contractors and other services. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Councilor Roby.
Thank you. Just to get a clarification, there is currently a senior assessor that is in position.
Correct.
It is an increase in hours, but it is not an increase in the pay that they're getting, although it will be an increase in the end, but their salary is not increasing. Other than the fact that it's increasing because their hours are increasing.
Well, indirectly, that is correct. It was, the intent was never to make it an issue or to indicate in any way that this position was getting a raise, so to speak. It's just a, and again, it's truly just to align this position with every other surrounding town. When I spoke to these other communities, I know the assessors personally. And when we have the conversation, some are surprised that we're at 35 hours because where we came from, my whole staff, we all came from Worcester. And they have 6 assessors plus the chief assessor, so there's 7. They all work 40 hours. There was never a question of working 35 or anything below that. And I don't, maybe I misunderstood earlier, I don't think anyone was indicating that, you know, my position is less hours or I work less hours than my senior assessor. I don't think that was being indicated.
No.
Because anyone who knows me and sees my light on, you know, after 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night and bringing work home on the weekends, I would never want anyone to indicate that I'm not putting in the hours and that I am leaving earlier so my senior assessor can stay later. So that allows me to leave. That is never
I don't think anyone's
case,
questioning your integrity.
Okay, I just want to make that clear.
I scared John once on a weekend here.
So again, for me, it's just a matter of bringing this position to the 21st century in my eyes. Anything else I can answer, I'm more than willing to do that.
Councilor Brown.
Unless there's any further discussion, I move to approve the change of hours for the senior assessor from 35 to 40 and to approve the transfer request in the amount of $3,653.
Motion is, do I hear a second on that motion?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded on order number 24-100-9097. communication from the mayor, proposed change to the hours of the senior assessor from 35 hours to 40 hours per week, and a transfer request in the amount of $3,653 from reserve for salaries to senior assessor to cover the salary increase for the remainder of FY 2024. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carries 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 1. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Principal Assessor. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, up next is order number 24-9082, communication from the mayor, proposed ordinance amendments to the City Code, Chapter 125, Personnel, Section 5, preparation of classification descriptions, and to Chapter 125, Personnel, Section 6, salary schedule, to create a new position of the Communication and Special Projects Director, in addition to a transfer request in the amount of $25,900 to fund the position for the remainder of FY 2024. And for the councilors, this is a continued review. And good evening, Mr. Mayor. I know a lot have met you.
Yes.
Spoken with you, communicated to get anything answered, and now you can go through the next process.
Thank you. So I'm happy to take the floor. So good evening. I want to thank the councilors who did reach out for more information and with their questions. I am always happy to sit and discuss the topics facing our city. At the last Finance Committee meeting, we had a back and forth that was beneficial for me to understand your questions, ideas, and concerns. What I took from that meeting was that I need to do a better job explaining why this position is needed and why I presented it to you in the fashion that I have. In order to do that, I asked department heads to provide feedback on how this position would be beneficial to their department. I sent those letters to all of you prior to this meeting. Those departments include police, fire, DPW, assessors, collectors, recreation, senior center, health department, conservation, inspection services, the library, and the IT department. This position is about much more than a newsletter. Many, if not most, of these departments noted that they would benefit from additional, ongoing, internal assistance with both training and getting their information out to the public. There are many platforms and tools we can use to get information out about events, programming, and city services that department heads do not have the time, training, or knowledge to do so on their own. What seemed to be the main concern among councilors was the salary. I understood some of the concerns surrounding this, and I worked to address them. Included in the email that I sent yesterday was a step schedule offering 4 potential starting salaries. The first 2 would bring the salary under what the chief of staff is currently making and are about $5,000 to $6,000 decrease from my original proposal. I chose these because it both addresses the concern of the council and allows for the position to stay at a competitive rate that will attract a quality candidate. I want to again stress that I started with a $1.5 million in excess salary line item and that this position would be funded by that excess through fiscal year 24. I am more than happy to have additional conversations and review the effectiveness throughout the budget process for fiscal year 25. Let this position prove itself. Using funds that have already been budgeted through the remainder of the fiscal year, that is all I'm asking of you tonight. It is my hope that the additional information from department heads and the willingness to work with the council on the finance piece provides a better understanding of the need and shows my good faith in working with you on your concerns. To provide additional context to what the department heads and I would like to accomplish with this position, I have a presentation I would like to share with the council. So if we could start that. So as you can see, this is the communication examples and benchmarks for tonight's viewing. So the first slide is the social media. The City of Marlborough does not have an Instagram account currently, so we're showcasing what Worcester does provide. They have 28,000 followers. They're consistent on branding. It's simple and informative and updated daily, multiple times per day, and they have engaging video content. Next slide. So as you can see, they have election information and there's a little video. So they actually have a YouTube channel as well where they embedded the YouTube. So all this information that we're providing is actually done by the communications director that they have in Worcester. So if you want to just show the video.
Pause here. Are you ready to vote? Here are a few important tips. If you are registered to vote in the City of Worcester, you may take advantage of in-person early voting at the Worcester Public Library on Monday, August 28th through Friday, September 1st. Visit www.worcesterma.gov for more information. Mail-in ballot drop-off boxes will be available at each Worcester fire station and outside Worcester City Hall. For the September 5th municipal preliminary, the deadline for the election office to receive vote-by-mail applications is 5 p.m. on Monday, August 28th. The voter registration deadline is 10 days before the municipal preliminary on August 26th, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can vote on Election Day at your assigned polling location. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Find your polling location at www.worcesterma.gov.
Go to the next slide. So here is actually a video that Worcester did about their new website, which we'll be doing as well. Again, it's clear, it's concise, it's branding, it's consistent, and we can actually, when you utilize Instagram, you can pin it to the top so it's easy and accessible, and it's just a different way to reach a different targeted audience that actually use Instagram. So if you want to just briefly, quickly show that video. It's about a minute long. The next slide will show the quality of life regarding Worcester. It's a little bit on the longer side, but I think you understand the level of what we can provide when you have someone who's in-house that works on this. Again, the quality is extremely important when you produce something like this. It's the high level that we expect with this position. I don't know if you want to do like a 15 seconds of this.
Our vision involves strengthening community partnerships, expanding outreach efforts, and implementing innovative strategies to create neighborhoods that are not only safe, but welcoming and thriving. I am Dan Cahill, Director of Quality of Life for the City of Worcester. So the Quality of Life Task Force is an interdepartmental team made up of members of the Worcester Police, Department of Inspectional Services, Department of Public Works, as well as our homeless outreach team. We handle such issues in the city as homelessness, trash, illegal dumping, vacant unsecured properties, unregistered vehicles on the street, other police issues, as well as needle removal. So the Quality of Life Task Force began.
So again, I don't plan on creating a quality of life director position, so let's not make that clear. I don't plan on doing any other positions. So again, we can showcase this with the positions that we already have, with the rec department, with the code enforcement, to a vision plan of what Marlborough for the future. So we can create high quality content videos that we can provide. Moving forward, the City of Worcester also has an Instagram regarding Hazardous Waste Day, where you can scroll through and see different hazardous waste and then what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Moving forward, we can showcase trash and recycling information regarding holiday schedule. It's clear, it's concise. What will not result in a day regarding trash pickup. I'm sure many people get phone calls or social media regarding what day is trash pickup. We can, again, pin that. It's easy, it's accessible, it's clear, it's clean, and then holidays that will result in a day. Again, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Like, this is just an easy way for people to actually go to a resource where they're not picking up the phone or they're not going to the website if people do not want to use the website. It's just a different vehicle to provide accurate information. We can move on to the next one. Now we're moving forward to different projects that the communications director could do. This is a town of Oxford where they actually do a budget. The town of Oxford actually won the Government Finance Officers Association Award. It's visually compelling. It has graphics, photos, charts, background on visual visions and goals, and it's a budget where it's a communication piece. It tells the story. When we get our budget, we actually have this school. It actually provides pictures and graphs, and it tells a story of what their plan is, how far they're going forward, what they expect regarding a percentage increase. We don't have that. The town of Oxford actually has budget process, the timeline, economic and financial stewardship. It's all broken down. They have an organizational chart. They have the free cash trends, the funds, the balance. So this is the idea of when we talk about transparency and having record keeping, rather than just a binder that we see regarding a budget that's a bunch of numbers. Again, other communities are doing this. It's great for record keeping. We can post it on the website in a PDF. It's actual record data that can be utilized and as a resource for, again, another fiscal year, so we can compare what happened last year, what happens in the following year. Moving on to the City of Salem. City of Salem actually has an AI chat bot. So what they do is, you can see on the corner of Salem bot, the little window there, they actually, based upon which panel or website part you're on, that chat bot feature can actually change. So for an example, if they're on the home page, they can news and announcements, meetings and calendar events, parking information, trash yard waste. If they were on the rec department site, for an example, you can have beach populate, you can have trails populate, you can have snowshoeing events, so you can just click on that so they can drill down on what information you want. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because someone actually has to be on the back end user and populate that content. So the AI chat will actually pick up those keywords. So if you don't have anyone putting in that content, you will not be able to utilize the chat bot feature to its most effective. So that's why Salem does it pretty well. So if we move on to the next slide. Website of Chatham, and the reason why we brought Chatham up is because they are actually use Civic Plus, and they are actually the same tier that we are moving to. So if you can see how clean and concise this is for the town spotlight, if you can move on to the next slide, visually it's very striking. You can change the agendas and the meetings, but again, all of this, someone has to change this. It doesn't just magically happen. And I think that's the difference between the website that we currently have, where it can be updated, but no one owns it. So when you want to have a website that is actually as nice and clean and sleek with actual information, someone has to own it and manage it. And that's the problem that we'll be facing if we don't hire someone to do that. Again, more of Town of Chatham, news and updates. So all of these little boxes can be changed based upon the season, based upon construction that's happening, based upon what's going on in City Council. Again, it's just another vehicle for the residents so they know what's going on. They have the help center, they have meetings and events, they have the calendar that can all be updated and changed based upon the demands that the city needs and has. We have done a community survey that's been going on, and so we just wanted to showcase some numbers just to highlight that. So there's been 422 responses as of today. Would you benefit from a city newsletter, non-emergency alerts? Yes was 387, 12 no's, and 3 I don't knows. Do you use the city website for related information? 356 say yes, 60 say no, 6 say I don't know. And then how helpful do you find the city website? I do not use the website was 29, not helpful at all, somewhat helpful to 21, helpful was 113, very helpful was 42. So they're kind of across the board. So having said that, when I was sitting in the chairs that you are in now, I felt that I was not getting up-to-date and consistent information from the mayor's office as a city councilor. I also did not feel the residents were receiving up-to-date and consistent information either. Now that I'm sitting in the chair of the mayor, I can tell you why. Communication was not a priority for the previous administration, leaving us over a decade behind our peers. There was no staffing, infrastructure, investments, or tools. I brought forth the website upgrade and redesign project that I'm very thankful that you all approved, and as well as this position, because I recognize that we can do better for our residents, and I'm taking action. The little communication that existed was being done by the mayor's office staff. My office, as it stands, does not have the capacity to bring us where we need to be after a decade of being behind. We need a full-time position that focuses on these efforts. In 2018, MEDC hired a consultant to research ways that MEDC, the school, and city could improve communication and attract new residents. Over the life of that contract, $100,000 was spent to share steps that can be taken to do so. One of the recommendations was to invest in staffing support to implement a communication strategy, and that was in 2018. We need to take the next step when it comes to communications and invest in infrastructure. Nothing I presented to you tonight or at the last Finance Committee meeting was done in a vacuum. As you can see by the studies MEDC has, the needs of our department heads, and the data from our community survey. Since taking office, we have both heard great feedback, both in person and in our survey, about the increased communication efforts that we have done to date. We also have heard where they are lacking. For example, I received an email about the water main break that closed Berlin Road. Here's a piece of that email, and I quote, "I'm not sure if this is something that the mayor has any control over, but given that there are many ways to share important information with the residents, I want to let you know that those of us that live on Berlin and neighbors on Dalton Street are very frustrated with the lack of information. A town-wide text, email, phone call alert, as well as a post on the city Facebook page would have been appreciated. If you can please forward this message to anyone else who should receive it, possibly DPW, that would be wonderful," end quote. This resident is correct. There are many tools that we should be using that many other cities and towns are utilizing that can make an impact in the lives of the people we serve. We need to plan for communication with the public in the events of these types of incidents, whether they be planned or unplanned. My office and communications director would coordinate sending out the proper information to residents, while the respective department would be focusing on dealing with the issue at hand. I know this is a big change, and you're used to status quo in a lot of areas of the last 12 years. I'm asking you to trust my judgment to do what would help position our city towards the future. This position is not about my communications. It's about how we can serve our residents and the city departments better. I am committed to working with you on communications moving forward and always welcome your feedback and input. We have an incredible number of services that we provide our residents, including 40 miles of trails, curbside pickup and drop-off facility services, dozens of monthly senior programs, a host of seasonal recreational programs in parks, and so much more. We have these things because of the dedication of the City Council to provide them and a hard work of our employees to execute them. Let me showcase that. Let's work together to combat the negativity and incorrect information and showcase all of the amazing things Marlborough has to offer. Before I open up for your questions, I'd like to have IT Director Mark Gibbs speak to you of some of the concerns you brought up in the last meeting. Thank you. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, Director Gibbs.
So I know while I was away, you guys had a lot of questions about the position being an IT position because it's a web hosting. It's not the web hosting and stuff. This really doesn't fall under the IT department, and I'll explain to you why a little bit. So we deal with more of a technology side. So think of it as like this website communications. I'm not in a position to tell the police department, the DPW, what to put on their website, make fancy videos, or any of that kind of stuff. You don't want me making those things. So you would want somebody more of a communications director doing something like that. We're more of the back-end, hard-end working stuff. Like, for example, making sure all the software is secure. And again, thank you for approving the website redesign and update. I've been frustrated with our website for quite some time now because of the lack of security in the settings. We'll be able to move to a more MFA solution with the website, more secure. Very happy with the new technology that we're going to, so I'm happy with that. But again, this is not a position for the IT department. Again, I'm not in the communications business. We spend most of our time more focusing on the security and updating and all that kind of stuff on a daily basis. Matter of fact, one of my guys is there right now looking at some stuff in the firewall and things, because it's just on nonstop all day long. You heard just recently American Express was just hacked again. The Lowell school department now has been compromised. I mean, it's on and on and on. So this is where we focus. We focus on preventing that kind of stuff, making sure we get the right stuff in place. Also with the website, if you think about it, like it's like another software application. The fire department, for example, they just went to their new software application. We helped them set it up. We helped them get to where they needed to be. We made sure that they have the single sign-on. We made sure it's secure. But when it comes to the content and what to put on there and what to share, that's up to them. That's not up to the IT department. We don't decide any of that. But when there's a problem, yeah, they call us. Yeah, we make sure that we can fix it. And we'll do whatever we can to help anybody that calls us. So with that said, it's really, it's really not my position. But I do support this position. I do believe that we do need somebody to be able to update the website. It is stagnant. It doesn't change. It doesn't update. There are a lot of websites up there that do a lot of things, but you got to get someone in there to push that and to make that happen. A good example is the Blackboard Connect software that we did back when Delano was a counselor. We purchased this software. It was great to send out mass emails and mass calls for West Nile information, for any emergencies, trash pickup when it's slow, they can make that phone call. But we also tried to push it into the department's hand as well, because we paid for the software. The departments had the ability, the library had the ability to send out messages on, when they're going to have a book readings or whatever at the library. And the recreation department could send out mass messages to when they were going to have swimming lessons or when sign up was and all that stuff. I mean, we did all this stuff. We put it on the website. People signed up for these different departments, but none of the department heads sent anything out. Nobody got messaged out. The only thing we used it for mainly right now is the emergencies. The police departments send it for communications within all their police officers. They send mass texts out to all the police officers. Same thing with the fire department. So it is used for the emergency type of stuff, but I mean, to get somebody in here like this, to get the department heads to utilize this excellent software that could be, I mean, just think about it. If you're a library person, you're a book person. I'm not a book person, but if I was, I would sign up for the library stuff. So when new things are happening, I would get texts or messages or anything. I mean, if the library's closed one day, I would get a message saying, "Hey, we're closed today because of the snow." I mean, I can only bring them to the place, but I can't make them do that stuff. And that's really where the mayor's office comes in. And I think that they're going to be able to make this stuff happen. Hopefully.
Thank you, Director Gibbs. I'll open that up to any finance committees or any council or.
If someone else was going to put their hand up ahead of me, go ahead. Was there anyone I didn't look on this side? Okay, then I guess I'll start the conversation. As the body knows, I'm in favor of this position. I work for the town of Ashland, who has now had this position for at least 5 or 6 years. They have an IT department, but they also have a communications director, more or less, doing exactly what Mark just mentioned. And they've even learned how to take care of the volume in the city council chambers. Little hit, I'm sorry. But most importantly, I believe this is for everyone. I know I've read in some of the letters that the newer generation, well, I'm kind of in the middle, I guess. And if you look at our elderly director's letter, she mentions how important it is to get text out to our seniors. As you just said, the community center's closed for the day. The day of Blackboard's gone away because there were too many calls going out. Now it's specific to emergency personnel and so forth, because people are getting tired of answering the phone. Oh, it's just that recorded message again. texts are the way to go in that respect, and to
Well,
reach out to your...
The difference with a Blackboard thing is when you sign up for like library and those kind of informations, they only get what you want to get, so.
Which is good. But again, we were told, because I worked on Blackboard, I actually had privileges to utilize it too, but not to overuse it. But during H1N1 and all those days, we needed it. The other note I wanted to make, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing us into, I would say, the 21st century, which we should have been in a long time ago, we are now, is the fact that I worked in emergency management, emergency command. I actually took training to be a PIO. It's so an information officer. It's so important to get that news out when it's critical. And I noticed in the fire chief's notice that that needs to be done. And hopefully this person will interact with our emergency departments. Might it be the Board of Health, might it be the fire, the police, whoever's involved, say during a major ice storm, which shut down the entire city of Worcester for many days, if you remember a few years back. It's so important to have this position. It's almost like, why don't we have it? And I thank this mayor for bringing it to our attention. I support it 100%. I'll motion right now to approve, if it wasn't already motioned at the previous. Mr. Chairman, was this on the floor? It was postponed. I watched the end of the meeting.
It was postponed, yes. And it was, the reason was postponed as well.
For more information.
More information, and I know for myself, and I met with the mayor, I felt going into this, it's like a duplication of a process. And the reason I say that is you still need to receive the data as contact information. It still has to come in and go out. That's why I felt, I think it is a valid position and a valid portion of the city to get the information out. Again, I just felt it was a duplication because we already have the means to be able to do that. Department heads need to utilize that, then that's fine. So that was my concern. I felt it was a duplication of a process. And how good is the information we're going to get coming in with contact information? So that was the question that I had. I know some other councils had.
And I respect that. But I was just going to wrap up and say another important factor that was in one of these letters: misinformation. Facebook. I read them, but I don't respond. TikTok, and there's another one out there that was mentioned. You can't have misinformation out there. And I see this as a combination of all the department heads working with this communications person. So that's why I support it. I understand the duplication, but I don't think this is a duplication from already having the experience to work with someone in this field. It's so important in today's world. We don't want misinformation out there. We want to be ready for emergencies. We want to be able to reach our residents the best way we can. And the mayor didn't pay me off to be a salesperson on this. But I'm going to motion to approve this position as presented in the mayor's new package. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Motion's on the floor.
Do I hear a second on the motion?
He's got his hand up. He had his hand up.
A motion has been made on the order. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve order number 24-100-9082, proposed ordinance amendment to the City Code, Chapter 125, Personnel, Section 5, preparation of classification descriptions, and to Chapter 125, Personnel, Section 6, salary schedule, to create a new position of a Communication Special Projects Director, in addition to a transfer request in the amount of $25,900 to fund the position for the remainder of FY 2024. Any further discussion? Councilor Facillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I was also somebody who motioned to postpone at the last meeting for many of the same reasons. I had some concerns that I still wanted to bring up, and I appreciate that the mayor took some time to meet with me, both over email and then also in person, so I do thank you for that. Coming away from that meeting, I really do appreciate the revised salary schedule. I appreciate the salary schedule. Not only that, but we had a nice conversation about the city of Woburn, and I wanted to bring that to light. Woburn is doing a similar process with a new mayor, and they're bringing on a communications director at the same time. I think that the salary is very comparable to the one that we've kind of revised and agreed upon now. I also really appreciate the outpouring of support from city personnel and department heads. That was something that I really needed to see. I don't think that was presented at the last meeting, which is a big reason why I did hold back on this. Seeing that support from city department heads is really important to me, and I feel a lot more comfortable with this. I did want to ask one quick question just about the MEDC aspect. So from their letter, I understand that they have been holding these monthly trainings. I assume they will totally phase out from that and focus on their work going forward, and we'll kind of have this person will take on that responsibility.
And they'll be meeting more regularly than just once a month.
Yep.
And they'll meet one-on-one with different department heads as well. I think the idea of the communications group with MEDC was because the lack of this position. And I think that's why MEDC took it on. I'm very thankful that they did, but they even had said that they outgrew this. And based upon the 2018 study, this is the whole concept of that study was to move this forward with adequate staff to provide this position. And to your point, MEDC will be moving along, and hopefully with your support, this will take over and we can actually have quality videos and accessibility. And to Councilor Orm's point, I think there's a lot of negativity and misinformation on Facebook because there isn't a reliable, accurate source to get that information. It's like telephone and gossip. When you hear something, you think it's going to be true, and there's no way to actually validate that information because it's not out there coming from the mayor's office. And I think that's why I'd never want to assume that whatever I bring down is a slam dunk, but I think the first time around I made the assumption that, like, why wouldn't councilors want to have their constituents have information? I think that was on me. I kind of now compare this rollout to the boardwalk that is happening. I'm sure you guys all field constant questions about why, where's the money coming from? I know I do out in the grocery store, and the Chat and Chew is a huge topic. That's a prime example as to how information was not rolled out properly, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. We are trying to get ahead of that by providing accurate, concise, streamlined information so we're not fielding the same questions over and over again, or at least someone will have the resource as to where to go to get that information. And unfortunately, that comes with a cost. I don't think the salary is that out of line with other communities. And if you want someone who is qualified and can actually handle the video content that we showed, you have to pay for that. It can't be just an internship program where it's inconsistent, or a consultant firm that will open up to more liability and will pay a lot more money for a consulting group to do that. As you can see from the assessor's office, we're trying to minimize outsourcing things and keep them in-house. So there's that balance that we all have to come to terms with, and I would love to hear more questions so we can hash this out and address all your concerns.
I'm going to go, Councilor Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I wanted to recognize that Mr. Gibbs is a teeny bit humble in his evaluation, because we have 376 of our citizens think that our website is somewhat helpful or better, and only 17 said that it's not. So, you know, obviously you're doing something pretty well based on this survey data that we have in front of us.
But to your point, IT just hosts it. They don't provide any of the content or any update.
I'm just looking at the data, sir.
Right, but what they're looking at is the IT does not do any of the content or put any information on the website. And I think that's the disconnect. So IT just utilizes hosting and servers and to make sure that it's up and running. Regarding what's actually on the website, IT has nothing to do with that. That's when the department heads would take over and fulfill that obligation as to what is actually being expressed in words and content on the website. So we can thank the IT for keeping the website up and running, which is extremely important, but as far as the information that entails on the website, that does not come from IT.
Oh, then the department heads are doing somewhat a good job or better.
Decent, yes.
President Austin.
Council Vital has the floor.
Sure.
All due respect, let him finish his points, and then if the mayor wants to ask the rebuttal,
Thank you, Mr. President.
The rebut the points that he's making. Councilor Vital has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Lissing. My other main concern is, Mr. Mayor, you've been now 2 months.
2 months.
In office. You probably have already started to work your budget and start presenting a budget. Couldn't more time be used to assess the internal resources that we have within the city to determine whether or not that some of this can be divvied out? And if not, submit it like any other budgetary item when your budget meets our floor, and say, this is a new position that we want to introduce in the upcoming budget.
Sure,
Mr. Mayor,
if I may,
would you like to
Mr.
answer
Chair.
that, Mr. Mayor?
And that's a valid argument. So what we're asking for right now is only from now until the end of the fiscal year to provide this position. So we're only asking for about $23,000, I believe, to fund this position. And the reason why we're doing this now is because we will want to get the website up and running and to create that content now rather than delaying the process any further. And then hopefully, as I mentioned in my little speech, that let me prove that this position is valuable as an asset between now and the next fiscal year. If we can provide incredible content and provide videos and information between now and the next fiscal year, let me prove that. And I'm more than willing to step up to the plate and get that accomplished.
Does that answer your question, Councilor Vital?
It did.
Does Councilor Landers have a?
Right, I had a
Councilor
couple
Landers.
comments, a few concerns. And timing is important, and I assume, as you just mentioned, Mr. Mayor, that you're trying to get this up and running during this fiscal year, for we will be ready for July 1st, which I think is a real plus. But that being the case, this is an awesome position you're bringing in. You're trying to coordinate what's going on out there now, plus everybody is going to be looking for, the latest thing, the new thing, one department head's going to want this and so forth. Have you had any idea when you'd like to bring someone on board? I have a couple of questions, so don't answer this one, then move me on. Mr. Mayor, when would you really like to bring this person on board? This is almost the middle of March, not quite to St. Patty's Day yet. But what do you have? You must have somewhere on your blotter when you'd like to have this individual on board.
In a perfect world, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you have a time frame for that?
As soon as possible. I just signed the contract for the website, so we can get going on this as soon as possible. In a perfect world, that's what I would like to do. Again, our terms are only 2 years, so if we kick this down the road, it's not as much time as.
So can I assume you'd like to have someone on board by April 1st? That gives you 3 months in the fiscal year.
If council wants to move forward that quickly, then absolutely, I would take it as soon as I can.
See, and I think that's a little bit of a problem. I'm not sure. There has to be some interest in this job. It's some publicity out there. There has to be people that would be interested in a job of this magnitude. It would be a hell of a challenge, I'll tell you. But I just hope that you're not rushing things. Now, I think you ought to be on board July 1st somehow, all right? And then you got to pick what your priorities are. Every department head is going to have a priority. You want to get a good website out there, So I'm going to support this eventually.
Thank you.
Tonight, for that matter, but I just have that feeling that you're like this. And I have been in the field a long time, and everything was to get ready for July 1st and September 1st. As you can tell, I was in the school department.
Sure.
And that's when I went from 40 hours a week to 80 hours a week, So I hope you're not just, moving this too fast. I'm not too concerned about the money, you know, whether it's 25,000 or 18,000.
Sure.
That's not a big concern of mine. But it's the idea that I just feel that you could be trying to move too fast. And, you know, there has to be some good candidates out there.
Sure.
And I hope you take your time, you know, interviewing these candidates and doing background checks on them, because, you know, people love to come to Marlborough, get the experience, and then in a year and a half, 2 years, gonzo. You know, we've seen it with commissioners, we've seen it with superintendents of school and stuff like that. So I want you to do a good job. I don't, you know, I hate to see you rush. And the other thing is, there's a lot going on. I mean, I think, you know, our department heads overall have done pretty well, and MEDC has done very well and so forth. There has to be a lot of coordination with what's going on now. You can't kick them to the street. You can't have some guy come in, or woman come in and say, oh, this is how we're gonna do it, boom, boom, boom. You know, they'll say, you know, how did we do it? What went wrong? So forth. So I just want you to be patient. I don't know what a good deadline is. I would say I'd certainly like to see someone on board, you know, by May 1st. You know, that gives you a little breathing room to see what you really want on board for the beginning of the fiscal year. You know, is the budget part of it, is the website part of it. So, you know, as I say, let's make sure we catch our breath and make sure we're looking at. It's an awesome project, and whoever comes in, it's an awesome job. I wish I was 40 years younger.
Thank you,
Okay,
Councilor.
that's all.
Thank you, Councilor. Okay, I'm going to go to Councilor Doucette, and then we're going to
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, if I could respond to that,
Oh,
if you
Mr.
don't
Mayor.
mind. Thank you. And to your point, I would never want MEDC to not be involved in the transition process. I think what MEDC does for the economic growth is incredibly supportive of the city. We kind of mirrored that based upon their video content, their podcast, and that information. I think they're a huge asset in this regards regarding communications, so I would never turn them away if they want to provide some insight and some accessibility, and they're more than happy to just continue to be involved in that process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go to Councilor Doucette, and I know there's a couple other councilors that have some questions as well, so if we can keep it kind of brief.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I think that, you know, at least my experience in high tech, the marketing budget for a typical high tech company is 20%. Marketing is probably the closest equivalence we have for this type of role, communications director. We haven't had one where, you know, I'm coming from an industry where this type of work was taken for granted, which is why I supported this from day one, because I think it's important to have people doing outbound communication that are responsible to make sure consistent messaging, consistent, you know, capability, you know, presentation, as well as making sure that the audience is getting the information that they need. And I think that's the key to a communications director. The previous, or what we have right now, is basically an outbound push. You know, we have our information, we're putting it out there, see what you can find. It's not necessarily presented in a way to be appealing from an end user, okay? And with the redesign of the website, I'm assuming that that's going to change. And I think this is actually the best time to actually have someone get involved as part of this transition to the new platform, to make sure that it has that type of perspective, so that it's, you know, at the end of the day, the goal of the communications director is to provide the information to the constituents that they need when they interact with the city. And I think that that's an important role that someone has to be responsible for in the city. It's nice to have someone finally getting appointed into that role. And I think it's also important that person is an employer of the city and not a contractor, because that way they're sure to have skin in the game. Whether or not they last, you know, a couple of years or not, that depends upon, you know, how effective we are and they are in doing their jobs. So, because at the end of the day, if they're effective, we just have to make sure they stay with us. Thank you.
Councilor Navin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the mayor. Mayor, thanks for this presentation tonight. I'd definitely say round 2 was better than round 1, so it's a compliment.
I'll sleep a lot better tonight.
That is not to say round 1 was bad, but this one is better. It's also shinier, so I would say it's already moving in the right direction from a communication standpoint. I agree with some of the points you made. I think we are a little bit behind in communications. I think that, you know, in your 2 months, we have already seen an increase and an improvement in communications. I know that from department heads and whatnot, and you remember, you noted when you sat here, we didn't always get a free flow of information. That's already improving. So I would say that an improvement in communication is reflective of leadership. And I think you are already working on that. So I think people will see, regardless of whether or not this position moves forward, I think people are seeing that. So I appreciate that. And I am sure people in the community do as well. One note about controlling misinformation, I think it is true, right? The vacuum will get filled. Good luck if anyone is going to correct some of the misinformation we see on Facebook or elsewhere. I think there was some good information about the path around Lake Williams. I'm still getting calls from people who don't even live in the city that love to take a good whack at something. So, you know, I would temper expectations on that. I don't disagree that the city as a whole could benefit from increased communication. I think that we absolutely could, and I don't even necessarily blanch at the salary, considering what you have put everything but the kitchen sink into the job description. And I'm not sure I would take it for that salary, but that said, as far as municipal salaries go, it is quite a good one. My concerns on this, you know, we've had a few of these conversations, and I think we have all had these conversations here on the council, is just the impact in the overall budget. And it's not just simply this position on the budget. It is what the next budget's gonna look like. It's been said a few times around here. I know we've talked about the fact that we've got to look at a salary study and to see what our positions that are underpaid in the city are. We're still waiting on DPW, and I think we all look forward to seeing what comes out of that. I can't imagine that number's going down. No. We have a lot of things that are going up. We are waiting to see this budget. We all enjoyed the talking points. I think we were one of 6 communities that did not see their average homeowner have an increase, but actually a decrease in their property taxes last year. We all enjoyed that talking point come election day. We all enjoyed the benefits of it. I am nervous about what the impact on the budget's going to be, as I'm sure you are very keenly focusing on that. All of our contracts are up this year. We've got department heads that need to be addressed. What these salaries are going to do to the budget, I'm a little nervous. We have an increase in our water rates coming. Last year we had a 6% increase in our wholesale water rate, in which the prior administration did not increase water rates, and that's great. Nobody likes to see an increase in their water rates, but since we don't have a dedicated fund to pay for our utilities, our taxes are what backs up, you know, those extra costs. Then it's an extra 3.6% this year. So I am nervous about what that is going to do. So that is where my concerns come. You are correct. You are only asking for the increase for the end of the year. I don't know about everybody else. I don't want to speak for them. I don't want you to bring somebody in who is terrific and we all think is great, and then all of a sudden we go, you know, then all of a sudden you look at them come budget time and go, okay, they can go. You know, it's a lot harder, which I can certainly appreciate and respect. But you know, I do wonder if waiting until we see what the budget picture looks like does make a little bit more sense. I am glad you reduced the salary, only because my question is going to be, and my question kind of still is, if I come into an office and I report directly to the mayor, but I'm taking instruction from the chief of staff on a daily basis, if I'm the chief of staff, I'm going to be I'll be the first one in line at your door saying, hey, when are we going to take a look at this? You know, and if that's the case, then we're just going to be dealing with another increase in salary. And I don't debate that, right? And I don't debate that we need to take a long, hard look. But I do wonder if getting our house in order and taking care of the employees that are already employed and go to work every day here in the city, that we don't look at that before we continue to analyze. Anyways, those are my questions. I'm not on the committee. I've taken a lot of time. I appreciate the time.
Councilor Navin. Councilor Roby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also not on the committee, and I guess I personally am struggling with this when and if it gets from the Finance Committee to the full council. I know when the mayor ran, this was a part of his campaign to increase communication, and I think he has done a good job. Part of me is the history of past communications that have come from mayor's offices. For me personally, I feel like they should have been funded from their campaign fund because it's all about the mayor did this, the mayor did that, the mayor did this. Everything is because the mayor is the mayor. It's not what anybody else, department heads, the council, individual people. So that's a personal gripe that maybe you, if this gets approved, you would go through. I understand that we need to fix the website. It's been a vote of contention for a long time, and I think that can be done with the communications person. I guess I'm having more of an issue with the job description and how much is in it versus it just be somebody who is in charge of the website, and then maybe you grow that position. Even looking at Worcester's website with the detail that not every one of their departments is on Instagram, not every one of their departments is on Facebook. So I don't know that we're going to go overnight to have every single one of our department heads with YouTube videos
Sure.
and Instagram accounts. But there does need to be a way for the public to be able to go to our website to find the correct information that they're trying to get by asking on a different Facebook account, where then they're either getting harassed because people think it's a stupid question, or they're getting the wrong answer because people don't know the right information. So it would be wonderful to have that. So I guess I'm concerned for the same reasons that were just described, that maybe putting this on hold until the budget comes out to see where we are. I would hate to have this approved and then cut in the next budget because it's just too big and we need to do something. So that's where I'm coming from at the moment. I have no idea where I would vote at this point. Yet. Thank you.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had spoken in favor of this position at the last finance meeting, and I continue to support it, probably even more so now with the additional information from the department heads. As I was reading the letters from the different department heads, it put me right back to when I was an administrator of an early child care center, which is corporately owned and has a lot of different locations. And at one point in my employment, it was decided that each school was going to maintain their own Facebook page. And it was actually something that the company was very passionate about. And my plate was already beyond full. And to have that also put on my plate, and it was an expectation, that it was something I never became successful at. And I feel like from reading the department head letters, there are already department heads who feel that way. But just as a resident going onto the website or the Facebook pages, I often find that I stumble upon things just by happenstance. And it might be about, you know, something that I might like to attend. Sometimes there's a trail walk or something going on, and sometimes I don't even see it until the day of, or sometimes I just never even see about it. I think each department has a different level of maybe time to put into it, a level of comfort in using it. And so like I see stuff on the rec department's website quite often on their Facebook page, but then there's other departments I really don't see much from. So I feel like with the new website coming in, the mayor said he just signed a contract on it. I feel like there are different pieces that I heard of why the priority would be to start the position sooner than later. So I just want to say I continue to support this.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. So a motion has been made and seconded to, Oh, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
So I did meet with the mayor. I met with him the day after the finance committee met, and I handed him my 12 concerns, and we addressed them or discussed them, and we basically agreed to disagree. Mayor favors the position, I do not, for the reasons of being it's overpaid, there's no council approval, there's no interview process. I'm concerned with the hiring process. So Mayor, thank you for the presentation tonight. So having just got it, I do have a couple of questions that I'll share some of my insights first. On the last page that you have up, I agree with Councilor Vital. I mean, would you benefit from a city newsletter? Yes. Well, we have that right now. It doesn't say that we need a new one, but whoever responded said they benefit one. Okay, well, they're getting one. Right? How helpful do you find the city website? So we want to pay 40 grand for a new website, 80 grand plus benefits for someone to maintain it, for the people that say they either A, don't use it, or it's not helpful at all, which is 17. 221 find the current one somewhat helpful, 113 find it helpful, 42 find it very helpful. So is that the money you want to spend on to turn over those 17 people? Maybe. The cities you picked or discussed, Worcester, Chatham, Woburn, Salem, I went back to your letter. They aren't listed in the salary survey, so I don't know if that's good or bad. So I couldn't tell you what salaries or who runs those items. So again, I just find that interesting. But again, I acknowledge we just received the information. I go back to the $40,000 for the website. It says it'll be done in 6 months, and nowhere in the letter does it say, councils, that we need someone to be paid $80,000 to implement. That was not told to us. It says we're going to update the website, which is good. But the addition that says now that we need someone $80,000 to maintain the website was void of that initial letter. You know, I heard the discussion on the department head letters. I mean, I read them all. They're good, but they're doing what the boss said to do. Write me a letter and tell me what you think. Well, I'll let you draw your own conclusions on that. I have mine. I'm still concerned about the interview process of the candidate. Is it someone preordained? Is it someone that's going to actually be interviewed? I still say because this person works for everybody, the council should have a nickel in who comes into this position. Because it works for everybody. It doesn't work for just the mayor. You heard Councilor Roby. It's not what the mayor did. It's what the city's doing. All right? So how is that conveyed and how is that shown? Again, I still think it's a PR spot, not and the mayor and I have discussed it, and we agree to disagree, and I'm still friends with the mayor. Amazing, huh? It's okay. We're not going to agree on everything, and nor are you all going to agree on everything. But I just don't think at the salary that they're asking, which is more than a firefighter, more than a police officer, that this position warrants that kind of money. I just don't, all right? It's not a hiding information. It's just, the information's there. I go back to the mayor's newsletter. There were 20 topics on the mayor's newsletter. 15 of them were cut and paste items from the existing information on the website. Do I need to do that? I don't know. I mean, but if I do it next month, they're already there. It's all set and ready to go. So, again, I'm not, you all make up your minds. I've made up mine. There's nothing that I've heard tonight that's changing my mind. I just don't think it's a position that's worth $80,000. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. So motion's made and seconded to approve. All in favor? 1, 2, all opposed? 3, it does not carry. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
I will second that. Motion's made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? Carries 5-0. We are done at 8:24.